Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Ensure Business Continuity for Remote Workers. This event is brought to you by Veeam and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's event. Now, we want this to be an educational event, and we encourage you to use the questions box there in your audience console. It's on the left-hand side of the slides window, and I can highlight it there for you. Actually, there we go. Highlight the questions window to call your attention to that. We'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of today's presentation, so make sure you get your questions in early. Every time we do a webinar with Veeam, we get tons of questions. It's such a popular product, and the audience seems to be very interested in everything that's going on at Veeam and the new innovations from Veeam. So, get those questions in, and we'll be doing our best to cover all the questions in the Q&A session at the end of the event. I also want to call your attention to the handouts tab there. We have a link to the Remote Working Solutions Brief PDF. You can go ahead and download that now. There's also a link to register for the Veeam On virtual event, so make sure you take advantage of that. Our presenters will be talking about that later in the presentation. And then finally, we'll have an Amazon $300 gift card that we'll be giving away at the end of the webinar to one lucky attendee on the live event. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the handouts tab of your audience console. This is going to be a great event. We've got multiple live demos, a really cool presentation. I'm excited to introduce you to today's expert presenters. They are Mr. Travis Miller, Product Marketing Analyst, global product marketing for Veeam, and Andrew, better known as AZ, who is a technical analyst for product strategy at Veeam. Travis and Andrew, thank you so much for being on the webinar today.
Thank you so much, David.
Excellent. So with that, I'll hand it over.
Today, I'm going to start talking about Veeam Agent for Windows and Linux and how we manage it and deploy it through our Veeam Backup and Replication. We're going to just hop through these quick slides and then get into a demo a little bit more in depth for you. So with that, Veeam Agent's here. So with this one, it's part of our main 5 use cases from our CDM platform for cloud data management. So the ones we're going to focus on today is governance and compliance for the centralized management, but it also offers so many other use cases out there for restore to any location. So you can restore your physical machines or other cloud backups with the agents to another physical machine, to a virtual machine, or even into the cloud. We have integrating monitoring analytics from Veeam One that works with our Veeam agents, so you get that complete visibility you want for your backups and environment. Then to offer the cloud mobility, that's more of a general thing across our other ones. It, like I said earlier, does factor in with our Veeam agents. And then it's a part of the Veeam Availability Suite. So it's purchased and managed by the licensing of Veeam Availability Suite and Veeam Backup and Replication, but also we still offer that standalone deployment, which we will go over. So first thing into our agent deployment is the ways that we actually can install it. So we have the managed mode, which is that centralized management through the Veeam Backup and Replication console. And there's a couple different variations to that, which we'll discuss today. And then a standalone mode, which is just like a kind of tool or utility you would normally use like any other software that you would go out, download, and install on the system directly, and then manage it and run it from that system as well. Now, there is some advanced configurations to the standalone that you can do if you're with configuration files to push out via sysprep, or even baking in our standalone agent into a golden image type of situation to deploy it already established on the machine as well. There's one other one that we don't have listed here, which is through our partner program, where we have the kind of easy button. If you don't have the resources or time or availability to even manage or deploy physical or agent workloads or backup solution, is you can reach out to one of our service providers that can work on either maybe just doing a professional services through our VAS program, our Veeam accredited service partners, our service providers, or just an MSP to have them set it up and manage it all for you, and then just give you introductions and access into restores or whatnot of your data. So again, 3 main top ones. 2 we're going to discuss today is managed mode and standalone mode. First way we do that is through a protection group. So under the managed mode, we create what we call a protection group that allows us to then basically create a container. So that container then dictates of what machines we're going to deploy the Veeam agent. Is it going to be Windows or Linux? And they can be combined in the same protection group, and it'll choose from there. Now we have options of how we add into that protection group through a individual computers, Active Directory, or a CSV file. So very simple, straightforward, different ways, because if you're in a larger environment, Active Directory, attaching it to that can keep it very simple and sweet to say, okay, look at this organizational unit and pull all these physical machines in there and deploy the agents for us. And that's all you need to do. So with that protect group, after you establish what you're adding into them, now you next have to devise select the options of when we want to rescan that for finding new additions, or when we want to deploy or upgrade the existing agent on there. Now, we aren't releasing a new agent every couple of days, but it's still helpful as if you're constantly adding machines into your environment to have this rescan maybe every day, once a week, just to say, okay, that new machine's there, deploy the agent and get it up and running into installed and ready to go. Then we also have some options for installing the change block tracking drivers and perform a reboot as needed, which I'll show you a little bit more in the demo here. But again, the protection group is the main point of managing the agent deployment, and it is separate from the actual backup jobs. So configure agent window setting. This is more advanced feature I'll go into here soon. Then after the protection groups created, we have the backup job types. So we have managed by backup server and managed by agent. These are both considered a managed Veeam agent because it's integration with VBR, and it's not the standalone. So with these job types, we have a workstation, server, or failover. And out of those, then we have the mode, which is managed by server, the managed by agent. Managed by server is everything is handled by the dedicated SQL database on your VBR server. So just like any virtual machine backup or anything else, it's all contained in that VBR SQL database. The managed by agent, or through our policy based, is a kind of hybrid of the two, where Veeam will do a lot of the configuration and management of it, but we offload the main hosting of the configuration and storing to the standalone, or not to the standalone, to the actual endpoint device, like a laptop or a workstation. So then when it's ready to run, it reaches out, verifies the configuration, and then we'll move on with the actual backup process. So it kind of like, I can work autonomously, but I always check in with the boss just to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. So that's our kind of just brief overview of the demos, or of the Veeam agents. Like I said, I'll dive into that deeper. That was just kind of get you a taste. Now I'll pass it over to Andrew that can go over our Veeam powered network that allows that communication to the Veeam server when needed.
All right, Travis, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me now. So yeah, I'm going to introduce you Veeam powered network, which is a really nice and powerful tool for every day. Like, I use it every day, so can you. And the premise of the tool actually started when one of our developers, like I said before, so we have the distributed company, we have people working in Europe, or working in Australia, working in the United States. And so one of our developers, he moved from Europe to Canada, and he wanted to be still connected with the office environments, and he wanted to do some stuff with like remotely. And so he realized that he cannot do that because the strange company's policies, and because of some latency issues and stuff like that. So he started a side project of working on the specific solution that essentially became something that we offer to our customers. But then essentially he was just trying to solve his own issue with the the things that he could not do himself, and then now it's a product. So let's hear it out. The challenges that you guys know, we have a lot of branches, or we have a lot of offices these days, but then it's fine while you have the main data center or the main office somewhere, headquarters with physical servers, virtual servers, workstations, people working there, and everything is interconnected, everything is cool. But then the challenge actually happens when you add a couple of branch offices or remote things, when you add cloud data centers, and cloud is really popular for a lot of people these days, especially for developers, DevOps, and for anyone who wants to develop applications and test them quickly. And then the remote workers, people who are staying home, staying safe, and trying to to access the company's premises and still try to be connected and to use the same shared resources. So here comes the challenge: how should we connect all of them together in a way that it's secure, it's performant, and it's just easy to use, easy to install. Yeah. So here comes the solution, Veeam Powered Network. I will tell you a little bit more about it, what it is, but essentially it's a nice looking console. Here is the admin view to the console, and we have the kind of distributed architecture. We need the central point of configuration, also known as Veeam Hub, and essentially this appliance, or this web the Ubuntu-based appliance with the web interface would be a central part of everyone coming together. And so it would handle all the traffic, redirecting the different users so they could access the company's resources on each other. And what it is exactly, again, we've been really thinking about simplifying the VPN configurations. And so we really hope that everyone who has no knowledge about VPN could be, up and running in as less as 20 minutes. It's available as a public appliance, it's as a public offering. It's available via both AWS and Azure marketplaces. I will show you the deployment of such a tool from AWS marketplace later. And yeah, it's a free tool. We wanted to enable community to actually to use it, to give us feedback on when you think it's going to be most helpful, or what you're missing in this particular tool at the moment, so we could enable it for you in next versions. But then yeah, it's no charge. We don't take any money for that. We just want you guys to use it and to tell us if you like it or not. And a couple of things I have to mention, because it's designed in a way that it allows some monitoring, alerting, and reporting. So who connects to that network that you're organizing, how many resources or how much traffic that person consumes and takes. And then you could also do something as reporting, going back in time and see who did what. A couple of technical details about this instrument. So like I mentioned before, we have the hub and spoke architecture. We need one central piece of configuration, which is Veeam Hub. I will show you how to set it up and how to enable that. And then all the traffic would be coming into it and then redirected based on the rules that are applied there. It's a tiny Linux Ubuntu appliance, and we have a couple of services installed there. So it's pre-configured. For point-to-site connections, we use OpenVPN. For site-to-site connections, we use WireGuard. We essentially were moving towards WireGuard, but then to ensure the compatibility with a lot of end devices, we just decided to stick to OpenVPN for the point-to-site connections. All right, and with that, let's go back to Travis so he could start with the demo.
I'm going to go ahead and grab and share my screen. All right, so if we hop over into the lab, what we're greeted here with is a standalone deployment that I set up. It is on a virtual machine, but acting like it's a laptop. So after I've done the initial installation of the product, I am greeted with, all I had to do is check two boxes, one for the license agreement and one for the third-party license agreement. We use .NET framework and a couple other Microsoft things, you standardizing for a software. We're prompted with creating the recovery media. So this is the first thing you would see on a standard installation. This is through creates an ISO. You can go directly to a USB drive or a thumb drive to use this as recovery media to boot into, very similar to like a standard Windows operation for recovery, but it's a Veeam kind of twist to it. Very helpful tool. Normally you would kind of go through this immediately. For time's sake, I'm going to disable it and just go finish. And then it should launch here and prompt me with this. And it didn't. Not. So I'm going to go into, see, I have the ability to do a recovery media later on, or I can do file level restore or Veeam agent for Windows or configure backup. These are more or less the same. I'm going to launch the configuration tool. I did an existing backup job of this in the past. I just deleted to kind of reinstall to show that intro. When you're first doing this existing, you'd be prompted with this new one. It's do you want to create a brand new job now? You go, yes. And then you have your standard backup job operations that you can create. So with this one, I am going to open up a wizard to create a new backup job. So I have this one. I'm just going to name it 5 just so we see this. Go through this process here. We have on our standard operations for agents, you can choose entire computer, volume level, or file level backup. So it gives you options to do what you want. Typically, most people do an entire computer because you get that image level, and you can still do file level restore from it. You don't have to restore the whole entire machine to another location. So this is the best. It does take a little bit more space on the back end for the restore points, but with our incremental backup, we can mitigate that quite a little bit for change data after the initial full backup. So again, very straightforward kind of options there. Then we have our, excuse me, our destination. So we could go to a local USB drive or local storage, a secondary drive on the machine or something like that you create a folder, a CIFS or SMB shared folder, NAS device locally, and then the Veeam Backup and Replication repository. So this is the one where if you want to go back to your already designated Veeam repositories to share the load across your other virtual machines or even a designated isolated one. And notice when I check that radio button, you see the backup server appear. So on the next one, it gives me the option of choosing my backup server that I want to target my backups to. So this one I've selected that. I don't have any credentials set up. Normally you would. So now this is then detecting remote repositories that Veeam has to offer. And if you see this, it shows me two listed repository. I have an exagrid that I've configured up, and then I have another local one to the Veeam server I just did is this. I'm going to go ahead and select that. But just take note of how many repositories I have there right now. I'm going to show you a nifty thing in the future, or something to kind of keep you in line with how things work. We have our restore points to keep here, which is our backup chain. So we do this. By default, it is set up to do non-synthetic fulls and no active fulls. So this is what we call our forever forward incremental. So if we have 7 restore points, we'd end up creating 8 before we did anything. And that would work with creating a full backup on the first one and then incrementals every day throughout after that. And then on the 8th day, we'd go back and merge our VBK full backup file into the first incremental file. So again, you're saving a lot of space keeping it that way. But you do have then the option, like I said, creating a synthetic full backup, which it takes less time to transfer off-site, does take the same amount of space as a full backup, but it does reduce your job time. Then the active full is just like if you ever ran the very first job and it has to create all the data from scratch. The nice feature about the standalone and the policy base that I'm going to discuss later is the enable backup cache. So if you are remote and you're traveling with your laptop, and if you run into issues is, I want to enable this cache, I want it to run to a local drive because if my network drops in the middle of uploading the backup or anything else, this will fail over to that local cache location, and then upload it after the job completes when you reestablish the network connection. So a very handy tool. Or if you just have no network connection and the job is scheduled to kick off, it will then write to the cache. Then when you come back online or get on Wi-Fi, you can then upload the backup file to the repository in the background. So, and you can adjust your bandwidth allocation for this and everything to make sure it doesn't overload your network as well. This one I'm going to disable because I already have. So guest processing. This is where on most laptops or anything else, you don't really need guest processing. And the way the license works, if you're going to operate in the free mode, you won't have access to this. This is designed mostly for Exchange, SQL, something that's highly transactional that will do a VSS shadow copy to freeze that application before we actually do the read of the data, so you get a consistent backup. This isn't required for standard file levels or anything else, and most operations aren't going to be needed by this. And you can save yourself some licenses by when in standalone mode, if you uncheck this, this is automatically going to use our workstation backup method. And that workstation method, you get 3 workstations will end up consuming only 1 VUL license, where a server edition will consume 1-to-1 ratio. So with that, we're going to move into schedule. So I have an option to create the schedule of, do I want to run it automatically at different times here, do automatic retries, and I even have a backup window to say, okay, well, if I'm starting at night, but I want it to stop by, let's say 7 a.m. every morning, because if I leave the computer, because I'm going to do it. In agents jobs, not really needed most of the time because it will throttle itself back if you start working on it. So you don't have to actually stop the job because this will terminate the actual backup job. So with this, you can see our normal kind of process here. This shows me our layout, and this has been running for a while, last 6 days. It failed last night for the other one. And if I click on this one, it gives me a more detailed process of what is going on with that backup job, how long it took to process each disk, and then the size here. So once we go into that, we have these other options. So you can choose your different restore points, and you can do restore operations from here as well. I can restore an individual file. I can restore a full volume. The bare metal isn't from here because you'll actually have to install the key and have the recovery key ready to boot the machine into that recovery image, and then it'll walk you through the wizard of the restore. We have some other settings here for the manage networks and registering storage rights, and then throttle activity if the system's busy. Like I said, we won't totally overwrite all your existing things here. One other one, just to kind of show you in the past of how that works, is we have the, oh, it is not here because I have it disabled. My existing job. See, the syncing of the license here is actually pulling the license from the Veeam Backup and Replication console server and applying the license. So this is a licensed version of the agent management. So with that installed, I actually have it on another one. So for time's sake, I'm going to hop over to our Veeam Backup and Replication console. And we don't see it yet because I haven't run the job, but you would see the job appear here under Veeam Backup and Replication for this. And I had it here before. You can see laptop here, job. It's run in the past. I just removed it from the console for time's sake of resetting for the labs today. But we have a couple other jobs that I've established and created from protection groups. But before we get into there, I'm going to go to our inventory tab. And this is where we create the actual protection group. So I have one that's a remote servers. I have one for remote workers. And then you can do manually added or unmanaged. And the laptop one here is actually that laptop 2 that is unmanaged because it's not managed by this. It's a standalone one, but it shows me the status is installed and ready to go. So for this one, I'm going to create a protection group. I'm just going to leave it as protection group 1 for right now for the name. I'm going to do individual computers. And I can do it by host or IP address here. And I could just type in an existing name that I wanted, and it'll do the search for it. Or if I do the Active Directory, like I said, I have the option here. It shows the domain that I want to. And then I can just drill down through our Active Directory business units or organizational units for this. I have one set here already to go. And that was under the remote workers one. So these are two main types of our protection groups. And within the Active Directory one, I have it done by a organizational unit, but I also excluded one because I was like, I don't want to really back up this machine, but it's part of that, so I can exclude at that level. Or if there are virtual machines, I can check that and say, okay, don't include those in the backup. We have then our master account. So this is what we use to reach out when we're deploying the machine. So if it's on a domain, a standardized domain account will work, but a lot of times, sometimes local accounts. So you can organize each individual machine to use its own local account for security purposes if you like. So you have some customization there and flexibility. Nice thing is, before actually going through this, you hit the test now. This will test that connection to the admin share to verify, instead of going through the rescan, it failing, you can know you can test different credentials really quickly. On this next one are the options. Like I said earlier, you can choose of how often you want to rescan your protection group to verify, is a agent installed or does it need upgraded? This is the distribution server. By default, it's the backup server. But if it's at a remote location, maybe you don't want to push your agent software every time a new machine comes online to the remote site. You could have a kind of distribution server set up at that remote location. So every time you rescan or add a new machine, it would just push it locally. VBR would still manage that process there. For laptops and backups or workstations, you usually don't need the change block driving driver. That's more for server edition, so server 2019 and whatnot. But for standard Windows 10 desktop, not really needed. The perform reboot is helpful. A lot of people leave that unchecked just because they don't want to force reboot during the rescan process. So they just kind of leave it go there. So we have a couple other applications here. So if you're using certain ones about your network usage, I don't want to, go over metered network, and also backup IO control. So I can set it to different ones of, okay, I don't want to utilize all the IO there. This is going to be a lower priority type of situation. Allow the file level recovery without administrator. That is the one thing to keep in mind for the standalone agent when you are deploying, or any Veeam agent. It does require administrative rights on the machine to deploy the software. So with that, we're going to go on to review. This is just showing me, okay, these already existed because I've already run through this before, but if I go ahead and do apply, that was just creating the protection group. This is the actual rescan process here. It's going out, verifying all the different packages, everything else, and this one already states that it's already been installed. So I don't really need to do it. It would take a little bit longer by this. And then that was for the initial part, the distribution. Here's the actual agent installation here for this one. And this is what's scheduled right now. Every day at 9 p.m., this would run in the background, as we can see over here on the left. So again, not required, already installed. So now I have both those there. Now I have the protection group. So from the protection group, I can say, I want to create a job for just one machine out of the protect group, or I can create it at base of the whole existing protection group. I can say, okay, I want to create a new one for this remote servers, and then it creates the backup job wizard. So with this one is set for remote servers, I already have a backup job configured, which I can go through here with. And when you're looking at this, I can tell exactly what these are, even outside of where it says type of policy, by the icons. Notice this icon over here that has a little scroll and the V. That's our policy-based backup job configuration. Remote Workers app is very similar to our standard virtual machine backup, is what I have labeled here. Virtual backup is just the gear, because the managed agent is very similar to that, other than just using the actual server edition for a virtual machine backup and location there. Then the download one, where it just has a little V, this is a standalone agent's job that's pointing to the Veeam Backup and Replication server. So with the policy base, this is the one for remote workers that you really want to introduce and work with, because it's the best of both worlds. So when we deploy a policy or base for this, we have same thing. I select workstation, managed by agents. I've already established this, so I can't change it. I could create a new job if I wanted to. And then I put some notes in there. I really recommend doing this for a lot of things. It's smart, so when you come back to it afterwards, you go, oh, I know exactly what's in here, what computers, and what's going on with it. This was RW4 I have in there, and I just call it Bob the Cash Builder. So with that one, we have the remote workers. I use the protection group to add in. The backup mode, I'm doing entire computer. Veeam Backup Repository. So see, again, this is very familiar to with the standalone agent deployment. DNS name of my VBR server for external. And then we have the backup repository. So again, notice how now there's 4 options here. I can still technically only use 2 of them, but I have the choice of all 4. And then with the policy, you have this backup cache enabled. Automatic is usually good, so it kind of creates a free one across the board. Or if you have a designated one for every single one where it's always going to be the E drive, local backups or backup cache, you have that ability there, and then how much size you want to allocate to each one. And then the schedule is very similar here, but with the addition with this, we have also the ability to do, if the computer is powered off at this time, a couple other extra features. And then this one is nice. At the following events, you can lock the computer after the backup, log off, or enable the backup as if you want to go to a USB drive. Every time you plug in that USB drive, it will initiate a backup job and kick it off immediately. So, and you can even eject it at the end of the job to help with any other third-party type of situations or ransomware crypto locker. So we have that process. That's the policy again. And what happens there is when we do this, and you see backup job configuration has been applied. So every time the backup or when it's scheduled to do, this will first reach out to each machine, push the new policy out to it, and then run its backup. Now, if the machine is offsite and can't communicate with the Veeam Backup and Replication server, it will always fail over to using its last known good type of config until it can communicate with the Veeam Backup and Replication server. It does this every 24 hours anyways. It always reaches out no matter what. Even if your job's scheduled once a week, it'll just follow up with the Veeam server to say, hey, do I have the new configuration? Am I good to go? For our more traditional style one here, there is a couple of extra different features when we do server or managed by server that I want to go over just so you're clear on. Again, this one I did by protection group, backup mode, entire computer, and then retention policy. Now, the nice added thing here is I can do the same restore points. Now I can choose by days instead as well, but then I have our built-in GFS process. So if it's going to the same repository, this can help you get your third 321 copy offsite to if you're targeting a scale-out repository, that this will write the full backup to it. Then it'll take that already existing full backup and then just modify it to say, okay, save that one for 3 months outside of it because I need some archival restore points just in case. So very helpful addition when you're using the server edition managed agent. Unfortunately, it's not available in the standalone or policy, but we do offer a backup copy job as a secondary location, which more or less does the same thing, but it's a second job on that configuration. So with that, we have the enable application aware processing again in file indexing, and then our scheduling tabs. Again, very similar to the other ones. So one last thing before I swing it over to Andrew here is I wanted to show you how the policy one looked. It's very similar to the standalone agent. So you notice I have the same aspect of listing here. I have the Veeam agent configuration. The main difference is I don't really have full control here. So I can run a backup job now, or I can do this, and I can do restore operations. But I won't be able to edit the backup job because when it comes in here, it'll be mostly everything will be grayed out, just saying this is managed by your administrator. So this is that shared responsibility where I want to give the end user the ability to restore files and everything and not have to reach out to me every time, but I still have the ability to manage the actual day-to-day operations of the backup operation. So it's the best of both worlds in certain situations. That's where the policy really kind of shines between them, and when we're detecting that. I did say I was going to give back over to Andrew. There was one thing I just want to follow up is under a backup infrastructure, when you're configuring repositories, by default, all repositories have this access permission. They're set to deny everyone. Now, this only really applies to agents for the most part, because virtual machine backup jobs. But so when I was on that standalone, when I could only see 2 of them, is because I have this one set to deny. It doesn't even give me the option to write to it. So if you designated a repository just for your laptops or physical backups, you could come in here and say, okay, well, I want to give access permission to only XYZ, Jill, Bob, and Sam. Or I can say everyone can as well. And then I can also encrypt the backups on the repository for extra safekeeping too. And with the license in here, we have this ability when you see the workstations and everything else here, server or workstation, see the 3-to-1 where it does here as well. This by default down here is another key thing to keep in mind is this box is checked as saying, anytime I point a free agent at Veeam, go ahead and consume a instance license for it and apply it to there to make it a paid version of the agent license. Once you've done that, then it's okay. Now, you can have unlimited number of free agents writing to a Veeam Backup and Replication console, but you cannot have free and paid versions writing at the same time. So you kind of have to choose either or here when you're devising your deployment plan and license consumption. And with that, I've gone over the kind of process of the deployment and different options with the Veeam agents management and standalone, and we'll move back over to Andrew to continue with the connectivity issue here.
All right, Travis, thank you so much. For the connectivity issue, we need to, obviously, like I told you before, we need to deploy Veeam PN. Okay, let's go and let's do that. And for that, I'm going to share my application so you can see what I'm doing. Like I told you before, I really hope that you can see my AWS console here. But then, like I told you before, we could go to either AWS or to Azure Marketplace. And once we went there, we just, easy as that, you simply search for Veeam. Okay, and then you scroll down a little bit, and so you go for Veeam PN 2.1. So once you clicked on there, and then you have to continue to subscribe, obviously, and then continue to configuration. Okay, so the delivery method would be Veeam PN deployment. The software version is just one version that we have at the moment. You specify your preferred region where you want it to be deployed. Okay, so I decided to specify Ohio. And then I need to choose the action to how it's going to be deployed. And for me, it's going to be via CloudFormation. So I'll just click on launch. So we have the templates ready to be deployed. And then for that, I'll click next. And here comes the CloudFormation configuration window. So I need some friendly name for my Veeam PN appliance once it appears there. Okay, so it's going to be like that. And then you have to select the instance type. Okay, a couple of instance types available. The key pair, obviously, because if you try to access the instance later on, it would be really handy. You need to configure the elastic IP, whether you need it or not. It would be handy, again, because if, let's say, if the instance is going to be disabled, going to be turned down and then powered on again, so the IP address would be still the same. For the SSH, you need to specify the range, the IP address range from where you could actually talk to the VPN appliance and connect to it via SSH. And for that, later you just need to decide on site-to-site configuration and point-to-site configuration, and then specify the new VPC that's going to be created, such a virtual powered network. But then if you, I don't know, if you're new to AWS or to Azure, just stick to defaults, provide the default, the friendly names, and off you go. Once you click next, the CloudFormation template would just run, and the instance would be installed in a couple of minutes. So I've just did that, and here comes my instance. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh it. It got the public IP address, so let's enable it and let's go and see what we can actually do there. Okay, it's this one, right? So the first time, obviously, once you're going to be logging in there, it will ask you about the instance ID, which you can take right here. And then you'll need to specify the user account. So the administrative account with administrative permissions, the user, for me, I'm using the absent. Okay, and now, obviously, you can go to settings. This is how the appliance looks like, the friendly. You can come here, you can configure all the settings if you need anything, but generally speaking, I do not think you will need to actually change anything if you're just trying to kind of to be real quick and to connect two sites or point to site together. So it doesn't really matter. So you'll come here to the overview and you can see the connections. So you don't have any connection. And what you can do here is you can add a new client. Okay, so for that, I'm going to add a new client and it can show you a couple of options. So the entire site or the standalone computer. For the entire site, I'm just going to add, okay, something as my, I don't know, the lab that I have in my work environment. And then you can see, this is something that I need, right? So I'm trying to connect two sites together. Okay, and for that, this is the public domain and public IP address and everything. But then I need to connect something that is kind of hidden and private. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, actually, let's come back, because even if you come here, I'm going to disable it. Even if you come here, you can see one friendly link here, download appliance. Okay, let's click it out. You see, once you click it, got it, you can see where you should go in order to get that appliance as a exported Linux VM that you could import somewhere and you could run it. That's what I actually did. I downloaded it from veeam.com from downloads. It doesn't require any license whatsoever, so it was really easy. I just created an account and I did it. Okay, so then I deployed it inside of my work environment. And for that, I had to use, one of the virtualization platforms. So my kind of option was the Hyper-V host, even though for VMware it would have been even much easier because the appliance itself, it comes as a OVA format, so there is really nothing you can do there. You just click on import and then you create a new VM and it's up and running. Okay, so you can see here comes my virtual machine running the same appliance. Okay, and I could connect to it. But most importantly, that is running inside of my network somewhere, and then I could actually go there and I could work with it. So for that, let me come. Okay, let me come here, and then come here. So you'll see what is going to happen once you'll try to access it the first time. Okay, choose installation type. This is not going to be my network hub. This is the site gateway. So I'm selecting the site gateway. And then you can see that's already some handy information for me. So if I want things to be connected, I should, I should know about my network configurations. And with that, I can come back here and I can actually do the configuration for the site. Okay, site configuration, work. And then I just copy paste what I was giving there. Okay, work lab, here it comes. Just click finish, and then yeah, I have this configuration file created. So I'll go ahead there. And actually, it would have been much easier if I did right from here. But anyways, so let me just download that configuration file that I was just creating. So it takes some time. Okay, for the clients, work lab, and then download configuration file. It's XML file that I downloaded, and now I can just browse. Okay, work lab, and once I click finish, it's going to, right now it's going to establish the connection with the main hub, with the main server right there. In a couple of seconds, we should be able to see that they are both, you can see that it's connected. And then if we come back to the main site right here, so we've got the work lab, which got this kind of the masquerade address in the new created network. And then I could actually connect to it. But then it would have been even better if I could do something else about it, right? To make them another client there. Just to show you, I'll click on standalone computer to enable another client. And for standalone computer, that would be my SQL server that I kind of recently migrated somewhere else. Okay, I'm just coming up with some like weird scenarios, but then it's up to you how you're going to use it actually. Okay, with that, let me switch here. Or actually, I pushed the restart button. Obviously, that's a proper time to do it right now. Okay, I don't need to do it anymore. Okay, so with that, so any type of the client I'm going to connect, it's going to actually to access first of all this public hub, and then the traffic. If I'm going to put if I'm going to have the need to connect to that work lab environment, which is right here, the traffic will be redirected, and I will just it will come there. So essentially, for our way, okay, hope my server is back after this reboot. Essentially, for not that easy. It's probably it'll take some time to actually to reconfigure. But then for our configuration, why is it important? Because probably if you have Veeam Backup Replication running, like Travis was mentioning before, so probably there is a huge chance that you will run it somewhere, obviously on premises, and it will not be exposed to the internet. So you can see I'm running it inside. Here is the IP address that I have. Okay, and whether my server goes anywhere else or my laptop goes anywhere else, like the remote workers changing location, not working in the corporate environment anymore, but just working from home. So essentially what he or she will need to do is to install the OpenVPN client. I really hope it's back so I can show you what it is. If it's not, we'll go from there. Oh, working on updates. That's a proper time to do it, mate. But then, yeah, OpenVPN clients. So what you can do is we can go to Google, to any type of browser that you're using, just write there OpenVPN client. You'll be redirected to the official site of the OpenVPN community, and you will just download it from there. Okay, I downloaded it, I installed the OpenVPN client, but then now it tells me that there is no configuration. Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually get some configuration. I know that you're running, thank you. So it would be probably nice to have your backup administrator or the network administrator or whoever this person in your company to actually mail you this OpenVPN configuration. All right, and we'll install the agent here too. That's perfect. Yeah, you see, this is the beefy SQL server, so it might be a little bit slowy at the moment. But then essentially what you will do is, again, come back here, come back to me. Okay, I'll just, for the simplicity, yeah, you will search the OpenVPN, then you will come there, you will download the client, and then you will need some configuration to be able to actually run it. Okay, so I'm going to log in from here. More updates, definitely. Thank you, Windows. We need to have all of them right now because this is the perfect time. Okay, let me connect. SQL download. Yeah, the OpenVPN configuration file is right there. And then it's really weird that it's asking me to install the agent. But once I click on OpenVPN, you can see that it has some probably unreadable information that doesn't make any sense for you except a couple of bits, right? But then what you can essentially do is you can click on OpenVPN GUI and then import that configuration file. So just go to downloads, file is imported, yeah, and then with that I could just click on connect. I'm not sure what's happening with the server at the moment. You know, it tries to do a lot of stuff that it wasn't supposed to do. But anyways, so the OpenVPN connection would be just connecting us to the hub site, and then we could come back to Veeam agent right here, and then specify that internal IP address that we could not connect to before. And then because of this VPN tunnel that we established, it would just pass all the backup traffic, right from here, from this remote system to the main server. And then, you see, I'm getting connection right now. So if we come back here for the overview, I can see that everything is connected. The public site, which is something that we deployed in AWS, the work site, one of my branch offices that I was connecting to, and this particular client that I installed somewhere on this particular server for the endpoint. And then everything inside of them would be just accessible via those IP addresses. So it doesn't matter for me. Let's actually see if I can, if I can write some small tests for you. So I know my address of Veeam Backup Replication server. I'm just going to ping it. If I remember it correctly, it's that one. Yeah, but anyways, I should be able to get there, and so that's my backup traffic. With that in mind, this is the solution that we wanted to talk about. This is the solution that we wanted to present. This is something that I encourage you to play with. You can see it's really that much fun. But then once you do that, in 20 minutes, the half an hour, you would have the distributed network with different sites, different clients, different servers, workstations, endpoints, united all together, and everything will be accessible inside of it. So you'll have it for your own needs, including the backup traffic and data protection and even data recovery. With that, let's come back to the slides that we have there, and let's actually have the conversation if we have any questions, because we wanted to to have it in a way that it's interactive, and so you guys, it's the proper time to ask us something.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have a few minutes left here for Q&A. While we do that, I just wanted to bring up this poll for the audience. And the poll says, what additional information would you like about the Veeam solution? We'll just leave that up here while we do a few questions. So first question that came in, we just wanted to kind of refresh, I think is what they're asking, the use case for Veeam PN. Can you tell us, I mean, what problem does this solve again?
Yeah. Okay. So again, the problem is that distributed, distributed connections. Everything is just not connected from one side. So if you have the company office, if you have the branch office, if you have like remote people, if you have multiple devices running in different locations with their own IP settings, they cannot really connect to each other unless they have the public IP address. And most of the time, that's not the case. But it would be nice to to connect them all together, to interconnect them in one private network. And this is where Veeam PN comes in place. So this is the solution that allows customers to create the private networks across all the devices, across all the sites that they have.
Very nice. And so is this something that you license from Veeam, or when you get it in the Amazon Marketplace, do you pay Amazon, or how does that work?
Well, you just pay to the Amazon for the instance usage, not the solution itself. It doesn't require any Veeam license whatsoever, so it comes for free, no charge at all. You're paying to Amazon, to AWS for the instance usage. If you have your own branch sites where presumably you don't have that operator who is charging you, then you just run there for free. That's easy as that.
Free. Okay, that's
Yeah, yeah.
nice. All right, very cool. So, and then another question came in. They're asking about the agents. Are agents included with Veeam Backup, or do you have to license agents?
It so it does depend on the model. So when you download Veeam Backup and Replication, it does include Veeam Agent for Windows and Linux packaged into that ISO. Now, and you can deploy it through that protection group directly there, nothing else to download or install. And when you do the managed deployment, everything from license management, everything will be handled from that Veeam Backup and Replication server. Now, if you download the standalone deployment, very small file set, that one, when you install it, will prompt you to either apply a license file, or when you target a Veeam Backup and Replication repository, will then want to consume a license. So you have the option of doing a fully packaged part of VBR or a standalone, but it's only sold through the package of a Veeam Backup and Replication license, our Veeam Universal license. So when you purchase that, you can use it for virtual, physical, cloud, or anything across all your workloads.
Got it. Okay. Well, I know we've reached the top of the hour here. There's a number of more technical questions we probably won't have time to answer live.
Sure. VeeamON's coming up here on June 17th, 18th. Due to the global situation, we are doing it virtual now. The list of great content coming in, and it's going to be very similar. We're actually using the same kind of platform that was today. We are going to have set up with a booth and other great things going on, events. There's a Veeamathon for technical deep dive and other aspects. Then we have some great speakers. I will actually be doing a couple sessions myself, and I believe Andrew will as well. So come say hello, ask us questions there on different things, but a great thing to learn more about Veeam and see some of the other working parts. Free, no costs at all. So it's over 2 days for this, and then you can choose and kind of build your own adventure per se. So.
Very nice. Yeah, this is exciting. I've never gotten to go to VeeamON. I've always wanted to go, and now there's no barrier to entry. Really, it's all virtual. It's online. Anybody can attend. So I want to call everyone's attention. You can just click on the links on the slide there to register, or actually, I've placed the link to register for VeeamON in the Handouts tab as well. Just click on that link, and it will take you to veeam.com/VeeamON/register. And you can sign up for the VeeamON event yourself. Sounds like a great conference. I know we've run out of time in today's presentation. I really enjoyed the demos. I know that the audience did as well. Before we go, I want to award the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. That's going to Trish Hanley from Texas. Congratulations, Trish Hanley from Texas. And finally, I want to give a big thank you to Andrew and Travis for your excellent demos and presentation today. Thank you both.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for
having us.
having us.
And thank you to our audience for joining us. Of course, we appreciate your time. And I know I learned a lot about Veeam agents and the Veeam powered network today. Really cool stuff, really cool innovations from Veeam. I hope that you had a good time as well and learned a lot too. Thank you to Veeam again. Visit veeam.com for more information, and we'll see you next time.